If you walked through the Amazon rainforest today, you would hear birds, insects, and monkeys. But 90 million years ago, this land belonged to giants. Dinosaurs ruled the Amazon, and the world looked completely different. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the Amazon rainforest. Towering trees stretch hundreds of feet into the sky. The air is thick with humidity. Sunlight struggles to reach the forest floor beneath a canopy so dense it almost feels like night. Somewhere in the distance, a howler monkey roars. Insects buzz. Birds scream overhead. Today, the Amazon rainforest is the largest and most biologically diverse ecosystem on Earth. It stretches across more than 5.5 million square kilometers, covering large parts of South America and supporting millions of species of plants and animals. But what if you could travel back in time? Not a few thousand years, not even a million, but 100 million years into the past. Back to a time when dinosaurs ruled the Earth. What would you find if you stood in the place where the Amazon exists today? Would you see the same jungle, the same rivers, the same towering trees? The answer may surprise you, because the Amazon rainforest, the lush green world we know today, did not yet exist. To understand what this region looked like during the age of dinosaurs, we need to go back to a time when the planet itself was still taking shape. Around 150 million years ago, Earth's continents were fused together into a gigantic landmass known as Pangaea. North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and Antarctica were all part of this enormous supercontinent. There was no Atlantic Ocean separating the Americas from Africa. In fact, what we now call Brazil was once connected directly to Western Africa. Over millions of years, the slow movement of Earth's tectonic plates began pulling this supercontinent apart. But during the early dinosaur era, much of the land that would later become South America was still connected to the rest of Gondwana, the southern half of Pangaea, and the environment here looked nothing like the modern Amazon. Instead of a dense rainforest, filled with flowering plants, monkeys, and colorful birds, the landscape was dominated by ancient forests of ferns, conifers, and primitive vegetation. These plants belonged to lineages that had existed long before the first dinosaurs ever appeared. Flowering plants, the kind that dominate the Amazon today, were only beginning to evolve. The forests would have looked strange to modern eyes. Tall conifer trees towered above vast fields of ferns, primitive cycads, palm-like plants that resemble something out of science fiction, covered the landscape. The ground itself was thick with mosses and ancient plant species that thrived in warm, humid climates. But this prehistoric world was far from peaceful, because hidden among these forests were the most extraordinary animals that ever walked the earth. Dinosaurs. South America during the age of dinosaurs was a land of giants. One of the most astonishing creatures ever discovered here was Argentinosaurus, a massive plant-eating dinosaur that may have reached lengths of more than 30 meters and weighed as much as 70 tons. To put that into perspective, imagine an animal longer than a Boeing 737 airplane, slowly moving through an ancient forest, each step shaking the ground beneath your feet. These enormous herbivores would have spent most of their lives feeding on vegetation, stripping leaves from trees, and consuming hundreds of kilograms of plant matter every single day. But where massive herbivores exist, predators inevitably follow, and South America had its own terrifying hunters. Among them was Carnotaurus. This predator was built for speed. Unlike the bulky Tyrannosaurus rex of North America, Carnotaurus had a slender, muscular body designed for rapid pursuit. Its skull was lined with razor-sharp teeth, and above, its eyes sat to small but distinctive horns, giving it a menacing, almost demonic appearance. Imagine standing quietly in a prehistoric forest, the air hot and still. Suddenly, somewhere in the distance, birds scatter into the sky. Branches snap. Leaves rustle. Something large is moving through the trees. In the age of dinosaurs, that sound could mean only one thing. A predator was hunting. But dinosaurs were only part of the story, because the rivers, wetlands, and forests of ancient South America were also home to an incredible variety of other prehistoric life. Massive crocodile-like reptiles lurked in the water. Primitive mammals scurried beneath the undergrowth, and enormous flying reptiles known as pterosaurs soared above the landscape, casting shadows across the forest floor. Yet, despite all this life, the world of dinosaurs was fundamentally different from the Amazon we know today, because the modern Amazon rainforest, the vast jungle that now covers millions of square kilometers, did not yet exist. In fact, scientists believe that the Amazon rainforest, as we know it today, only began forming after the extinction of the dinosaurs roughly 66 million years ago, which means that during the age of dinosaurs, this region was something else entirely, not the Amazon rainforest, but an ancient ecosystem that has long since vanished from the Earth. An understanding that lost world requires piecing together clues left behind in stone, fossils, buried deep beneath South America as soil, because those fossils reveal a remarkable story. A story of shifting continents, changing climates, and ecosystems that would eventually give birth to the greatest rainforest on Earth. But before the Amazon became the green heart of our planet, it was part of a prehistoric world ruled by giants. And in that world, survival depended on one simple rule: eat or be eaten. Now imagine that you've stepped through a doorway in time. The year is roughly 90 million years ago. You are standing in the place that will one day become the Amazon rainforest. But the world around you feels unfamiliar, almost alien. The air is warmer than today. The atmosphere feels heavy, thick with humidity. The sky above is hazy, filtered through towering prehistoric trees. There are no modern birds singing in the branches, no monkeys jumping between vines, no colorful rainforest flowers. Instead, the landscape is dominated by ancient forests of ferns, cycads, and towering conifers, plants that existed long before the first flowers ever bloomed on Earth. Some of these ferns grow taller than a person. Their giant leaves stretch across the forest floor like green umbrellas. Strange insects crawl across the damp soil, and the silence of the forest is broken only by the distant sounds of something massive moving through the trees. Because in this world, The rulers of the land are dinosaurs, and this region of prehistoric South America is home to some of the largest animals that have ever walked the earth. Suddenly, the ground beneath your feet begins to vibrate. At first, it's subtle, a faint trembling, almost like distant thunder. But within seconds, the vibrations grow stronger. Branches shake, bird-like creatures scatter into the sky. And then you see them. Emerging slowly from the forest canopy are titanosaurs, gigantic long-necked dinosaurs that tower above the landscape like moving skyscrapers. One of these giants could weigh more than 70 tons, heavier than many modern airplanes. Their necks stretch high above the trees as they reach for leaves far beyond the height of most other animals. Every step they take leaves enormous footprints in the soft prehistoric soil. These giants move slowly, but they are constantly feeding. A creature this large must consume hundreds of kilograms of vegetation every single day just to survive. And as they feed, they reshape the landscape around them. Trees bend, branches snap. Entire patches of forest disappear as these enormous animals move across the land. But the giants of this world are not alone. Because where massive herbivores exist, hunters are always watching. Somewhere beyond the tree line, hidden in the shadows of the forest, a predator waits. Carnotaurus, unlike the gigantic titanosaurs, Carnotaurus is built for something very different. Speed. Its body is lean and muscular. Its legs are long and powerful, designed for sudden bursts of acceleration. The sharp horns sit above its eyes, giving the predator an intimidating appearance. Its skin is rough and armored with small bony scales. But what truly makes Carnotaurus dangerous is its patience. Predators in the dinosaur world do not waste energy chasing prey endlessly. They wait, they watch, they study the herd. Perhaps a young titanosaur wanders too far from its mother. Perhaps an injured dinosaur falls behind the group. The forest grows quiet. Then suddenly, the predator strikes. With explosive speed, Carnotaurus bursts from the vegetation. Leaves scatter into the air. The ground shakes beneath pounding footsteps. The prehistoric jungle erupts into chaos. This is the brutal rhythm of life during the age of dinosaurs, a world where survival is never guaranteed. But the danger is not limited to the land. Because the rivers of prehistoric South America hide their own terrifying predators. Ancient river systems stretch across the landscape, forming vast wetlands and floodplains. These waterways are murky and slow-moving. The surface of the water looks calm, almost peaceful, but beneath the surface, something enormous drifts silently through the muddy depths. Prehistoric crocodilian relatives, ancient reptiles far larger and more aggressive than modern crocodiles. Some of these creatures could grow longer than a bus. Their jaws are lined with dozens of dagger-like teeth, and when they attack, the speed is almost impossible to see. One moment the river is still. The next moment the river explodes in a violent burst of motion. In the dinosaur world, even drinking water could be deadly. And above this dangerous landscape, another group of ancient reptiles dominates the skies. Pterosaurs. Massive flying reptiles with wingspans that could reach 30 feet or more. They glide effortlessly over rivers and forests, scanning the ground for prey. When they dive toward the water, their shadows race across the prehistoric landscape below. To a creature living on the ground, the sky itself could suddenly become dangerous. This was life in the ancient ecosystems of South America, a world filled with giants, a world of constant danger, and yet despite its power and diversity, this prehistoric ecosystem was only temporary because deep beneath the Earth's surface, powerful geological forces were already beginning to reshape the continent. Mountains were rising, oceans were shifting, and the land that would one day become the Amazon basin was slowly transforming. But an even greater change was coming, a catastrophe so powerful that it would bring the entire age of dinosaurs to an end. And when that moment arrived, the world would never look the same again. Yet strangely, from that destruction, something new would begin to grow. Something green, something alive, something that would eventually become the greatest rainforest on Earth, the Amazon. For more than 160 million years, dinosaurs ruled the Earth. They survived volcanic eruptions. They adapted to changing climates. They watched continents slowly drift across the planet. To them, the world must have seemed eternal. But history shows something very different. Even the most powerful empires can fall. And 66 million years ago, the dinosaur empire faced something it had never encountered before: a threat from space. Far beyond the Earth's atmosphere, a gigantic asteroid had been traveling silently through the solar system. For millions of years, a wandering piece of cosmic rock, nearly 10 kilometers wide, and on one ordinary day in Earth's history, its path crossed with ours. At first, the dinosaurs would have noticed nothing unusual. The forests were still alive with sound. Rivers continued flowing across ancient South America. Massive titanosaurs moved slowly across floodplains. Predators still hunted in the shadows of prehistoric forests. Life seemed normal until the sky began to burn. Across the horizon, a streak of blazing light suddenly appeared. It was brighter than any sunrise, brighter than lightning, brighter than anything that had ever existed in the natural world. The asteroid was entering Earth's atmosphere at a speed of more than 70,000 kilometers per hour. The friction turned the sky into fire. Within seconds, the object slammed into the planet near what is today the Gulf of Mexico. The impact created a crater more than 180 kilometers wide. In that single moment, the Earth experienced one of the most violent events in its entire history. The explosion released energy equal to billions of nuclear bombs. Shockwaves raced across continents. Earthquakes shook the planet. Tsunamis taller than skyscrapers surged across ancient oceans. But the most devastating effects came after the impact. Millions of tons of rock and debris were blasted high into the atmosphere. Some of this molten material fell back to Earth as burning firestorms. Forests across the planet ignited. Entire landscapes burned. The sky filled with smoke and ash. Within weeks, sunlight could barely reach the surface of the Earth. The world entered a period scientists call impact winter. Temperatures dropped dramatically. Plants struggled to survive. Without sunlight, and when plants began to disappear, so did the animals that depended on them. Across the world, ecosystems began collapsing. The giant herbivorous dinosaurs could no longer find enough food. Predators soon followed. One by one, the species that had dominated Earth for millions of years vanished forever. It was the end of the dinosaur age. But extinction rarely means the end of life. Instead, it opens the door for something new. Small creatures that had lived quietly in the shadows of the dinosaur world began to emerge. Tiny mammals, burrowing animals, flexible survivors that could adapt to a harsh and changing planet. Over millions of years, these survivors would evolve into new forms of life. But something equally extraordinary was happening on the South American continent. The land itself was transforming. Deep beneath the Earth's crust, tectonic forces were pushing massive slabs of rock upward. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, a new mountain range began rising along the western edge of the continent, the Andes Mountains. And as these mountains grew taller over millions of years, they began reshaping the entire landscape of South America. Ancient rivers changed direction. Water that once flowed toward the Pacific Ocean was blocked by the rising mountains. The water had to go somewhere, so the rivers turned east. They merged. They expanded. They carved enormous channels across the continent. Over time, these rivers formed the Amazon River system, the largest drainage network on Earth. Floodwaters spread across vast lowlands. Sediment built. Fertile soil. Plants flourished. New forests appeared. Over millions of years, the land slowly transformed into something extraordinary. A massive, living ecosystem, the Amazon rainforest. Today, this rainforest is the most biologically diverse place on Earth. It contains millions of species, more trees than any other forest, more insects than anywhere else on the planet. Yet beneath this thriving jungle lies a hidden past. Because deep under the soil of the Amazon basin, there are still fossils of the ancient world. Fragments of bones, footprints in stone, reminders of the creatures that once ruled this land. Long before parrots filled the sky, before jaguars hunted along riverbanks, before humans explored the forest. This place belonged to giants. Dinosaurs once walked here, and in a strange way, the Amazon rainforest that exists today is part of their legacy, because sometimes the end of one world is what allows another world to grow. And the story of the Amazon is proof that even after the greatest extinction in Earth's history, life always finds a way to begin again.